Agriculture Business Innovation Center. This is the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at an HBCU institution, RFA webinar. I am Dr. Maurice Smith, the National Program Leader in the Division of Youth and 4-H, and working with us is Keisha Corbin, the Program Specialist, as well as Cassandra Yue and Manaharan within the 1890 portfolio of programs. So we will be going over this program today. All right, so the agenda as follows. We'll give a brief introduction of NIFA, the agency, the program overview, program goals, eligibility within the program, just talking a little bit about that, the project types, evaluation criteria, applying, just successful tips for applications and your interest to apply. Also, we'll talk a little bit about volunteering to serve as a panelist if you have that interest, and questions and suggestions or comments as they arise. All right. So a little bit about the agency, who we are. We're the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Move this slide over a little bit. And we're lead federal agency providing funding for food and agriculture sciences in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Our mission is to invest in and advance agriculture research, education, and extension to solve societal challenges. Our vision, catalyzing transformative discoveries, education, and engagement to address agriculture challenges. All right, and there's a link right here that you can, that we'll talk about and to give you the resources if you wanted to learn more about NIFA's programs. So within our programs, the programs cover many topics. As you can see here on this slide, the advanced, something to know, advanced technologies, covering biotechnology, bioenergy, animals, animal breeding, animal health, business and economics, natural resources, education, which the focal point on this program, environment, farming and ranching, people, focusing on youth, family well-being or community viability, food science, health, covering nutrition, obesity, wellness, international, and plants. So these are the NIFA programs that cover so many topics that you will find as you discover the agency's website and information, more programs covering those topics. So our priority science areas, agroclimate science, bioeconomy, bioenergy, bioproducts, education and multicultural alliances, environmental systems, family and consumer sciences, food safety, human nutrition, sustainable ag production systems, and youth development. And those are our priority science areas. So now we've just covered a brief synopsis of an introduction to NIFA, and now we're going to talk a little bit more in depth on the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at an HBCU institution program. So the funding appropriation, $2 million was appropriated in Public Law number 116-260, section 766. Was to issue a competitive grant to support the establishment of an Agriculture Business Innovation Center at a historically Black college or university. This Agriculture Business Innovation Center must serve as a technical assistance hub to enhance agriculture-based business development opportunities. So the purpose of this Agriculture Business Innovation Center at an HBCU institution are as follows. It is to enhance agriculture business development opportunities, to include providing technical assistance to food and agriculture producers, including production scale assessments, market planning and development, business planning, and other advisory services, assisting in startups in agriculture business, including planning and obtaining funding, providing workforce development and educational experiences for students interested in careers in agriculture business, and also offering outreach services and activities, including training, workshops, and dissemination of information and materials. So as you can see, kind of the focal point of the highlighted bolded items on the purpose and the concept of the Agriculture Business Innovation Center program. So you're probably wondering, so what's more of this program? How can we really understand? Okay, you talked about a little bit about the agency. You talked a little bit about the purpose of the program. So what's the more of those insight golden nuggets that we want to obtain more to have interest to apply? So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. The HBCU, or the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at a historically Black college university institution, will facilitate administration, coordination, and management of multidisciplinary or multi-institutional teaching, outreach, and integrated projects within the scope of agriculture and business partnerships and collaborations. So the acronym ABIC, as we like to call it, serves as a focal point, providing access to assessing regional and national needs in agricultural business, leadership and administrative support for planning, development, implementation, and performance tracking, potential partnerships with other non-HBCU institutions or non-government organizations. The ABIC must also have developed a process for soliciting input and partnerships from relevant entities such as industry, government, and community-based organizations. The lead HBCU institution for the HBCU Agriculture Business Innovation Center must have this demonstrated commitment related to the mission of the center, ability to provide broad programmatic leadership for teaching and outreach activities administrated by the center, demonstrated competency in grant and subcontract management, and ability and willingness to provide administrative support for the center as well. So with the ABIC, the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at a HBCU institution, teaching and education applications must incorporate a leadership development component to equip students with technical and leadership abilities upon graduation. So specific activities may include developing practical applications to increase an understanding of leadership roles, including critical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills, ethics and professionalism, and working in teams, connecting the academic classroom experience with daily leadership roles and organizational activities, providing opportunities for mentoring and shadowing, and organizing leadership academies, workshops, and trainings. So this is the focal point on teaching education applications. So now you learn a little bit more about the program. Now we get into program guidance. You may have some interesting questions regarding program guidance of the program. So eligibility, and if you're following along, we're going to be talking based in the RFA key pieces. This is on page 11 in the RFA. So eligible applicants and project types, and this can be found, this particular area in the RFA on pages 9 and 10. Project types are teaching and education, outreach, or integrated. For eligible applications, the applications may only be submitted by a lead or faculty member at a historically Black college or university. So I'm going to repeat that. Applications may only be submitted by a lead and or faculty member at an historically Black college or university. Grant recipients may subcontract to organizations not eligible to apply for the purpose of supporting the overall coordination and administration of the HBCU Ag Business Innovation Center. So breaking this down, eligible applicants and project types in reference to the Project type of teaching and education. Those examples of relevant activities under the project type could include, but not limited to, formal classroom instruction, laboratory instruction, practical experience with faculty development, student recruitment and services, curriculum development, instructional materials and or equipment, and innovation teaching methodologies. For outreach projects may also include related matters such as certification programs, in-service training, client recruitment and services, curriculum development, instructional materials, and equipment and innovative instructional methodologies appropriate to informal educational programs. And then integrated is an integrated project which would include the two that we just named, the teaching and education or outreach of the functions within the project. If an applicant had the choice to submit as integrated, would have to include the two functions with that type. All right. Cost share matching, may have a question about that. With the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at a historically Black college university, it has no matching requirement. There's no matching requirement. NIFA would not factor matching resources into the review process as an evaluation criterion. And this can be found on page 11 in the RFA. All right, the request for applications, as you can see here, this is the link, and we do have some of our panelists may be dropping that in the chat for you to review if you haven't visited the RFA page in terms of downloading the request for applications document and additional information. We'll be adding that so you can view that. The deadline for submission is Thursday, January the 13th, 2022. The proposals per institution, there's no limit, and it's $2 million total per project for a project period of 3 years. And this program anticipates to make only one award. So this is some key information to follow up on. And you can view page 12 for additional information in the RFA. All right, and at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Keisha Corbin, that's going to talk a little bit about how to apply.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Keisha Corbin. I am the program specialist that will be working with you all on the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at an HBCU institution. And we'll be talking about a little bit about how to apply, as well as some specifics about the program application. Next slide. So in order to apply, you'll need to navigate to NIFA's homepage, or you can use the link copied here when the slides are shared, and you'll navigate to the grant section. If you click search on the left sidebar, you'll be able to just type ABIC or Agriculture Business Innovation Center, and our funding opportunity will come up. When it does come up, you will see these two buttons. First, please click the View RFA button and read the RFA in full. And when you're ready, you can go back and click the Apply for Grant button. Next slide. So for the overall application details, we will only accept PDF documents. Please do not use any third-party PDF builders. Please just save as a PDF. Otherwise, we won't be able to open any of those additional attachments. There will be a 20-page limit, and they should be spaced 1.5 spacing with a font no smaller than 11 point Times New Roman, and any text, additional figures, and tables will be allowed up to 5 additional pages. And applications exceeding this page limit will be returned without review. And you can find this information on page 13. Next slide. As far as the project narrative, we would like you to include the significance of the program and the opportunity, as well as a project justification. and impact on building and strengthening capacity, as well as a plan for a continuation of the program. You can find this information on page 14 of the RFA. Next slide. We would also like you to include any innovation within the program, so any creative approaches, quality of food and agriculture, solving specific problems or in potential results of the program, any multidisciplinary or problem-based focuses, products and results, and institutional commitments. This is on page 15 of the RFA. Next slide, please. Next, we would also like you to cover proposed approaches and cooperative linkages, as well as a plan of operation and methodology, a timetable, and evaluation plan, as well as a dissemination plan. Any partnership and collaboration efforts, when you have these, you should include also letters of commitment for those partnerships, and any potential pitfalls, limitations, and alternatives that may have been identified in the establishment of this program. And this is on the RFA between pages 15 and 17. Next page, please. Roles and project responsibilities for the HE personnel. We would like to see the number and qualifications of project personnel, as well as the capacity of personnel to carry out this specific project. So we like to see that individuals are qualified in order to meet the specific project objectives. And proposals must clarify the individual role of each key personnel, as well as the responsibilities and outcomes for each member. This is on page 17 of the RFA. Next slide, please. I will turn it back over to Maurice for the next 2 slides.
All right, thank you, Keisha. To continue on with the budget and the budgeting component, the budget including justification and summary form, applicants are to explain how the total budget adequately supports the project. For cost effectiveness in summary form, you're going to be explaining the necessity and reasonableness of cost to carry out the project activities and achieve project objectives. This is found in the RFA on page 17 and 18, and the total project budgets must not exceed $2 million total per project for a project period of 3 years, and the indirect cost, the IDC, not to exceed 30% of total federal funds awarded. All right. And okay, budget considerations. Successful applicants must not use grants funds awarded under the authority of this RFA to renovate or refurbish education or outreach space, or purchase or install fixed equipment in such space, or even planning, repairing, acquiring, or constructing buildings or facilities. Just to put that out there in terms of in reference to the budget. All right. And I turn it back over to Keisha.
Okay, so other attachments will include a cover page, a logic model. A logic model should be within 2 pages, and it is only required for integrated projects. So if you submit one for teaching or outreach, you do not need to include a logic model. A data management plan, which will be a 2-page limit, and documentation of collaboration. There's no page limit for this. This is on page 14 and 17 of the RFA. Next slide, please. So any first-time applicants, please be advised that grants.gov requires you to have your DUNS number and your SAM number. Getting these credentials may take a few months, so just keep that in mind when going to submit your application. If this is your first time applying for a federal grant, make sure your institution is capable of submitting a grant through grants.gov. Also, make sure you have the ability to save and create documents as Adobe PDFs. As I said in the beginning, we can only process PDF documents. And for any technical assistance, please contact the grants.gov applicant support and don't wait until closer to the deadline, just so you can make sure that you're able to resolve those issues prior to the deadline. Next page, please. So grant writing tips for anyone who may be newer to writing grants. We'll give you a few grant writing tips, 10 things you should consider while writing a proposal. Next slide, please. So one, find the right program for you and your idea. Be sure that this funding's main purpose fits your program and check the eligibility restrictions. We don't want you to spend a lot of time and effort applying if your idea does not actually fit within the scope of this program. Next slide, please. (2A), assemble an effective team and develop the proposal together. Include all expertise necessary to complete this project, whether that's agriculture or business or anything else in the related fields there. Don't start writing until all the team members are identified, and share responsibility of writing, but edit into a single voice. So we want to make sure that the proposal does not seem disjointed for the reviewers. Next slide, please. And establish a few ground rules. So who will be responsible for the project activities? If the project involves outreach activities, who are the stakeholders and what roles will they play within the development and implementation of the program? As well as when you're writing your evaluation plan, think about who will evaluate the project. Next slide, please. Become a student of the RFA. As we've said, make sure you read the RFA and understand the main goals of the program, understand the instructions outlined in the RFA on how to assemble the proposal. Feel free to reach out and ask questions, and we will establish a Q&A page on our website for frequently asked questions. Next page, please. Develop a timeline for proposal preparation. As we said previously, don't wait until close to the deadline for submission or to identify any potential pitfalls or errors. Develop a timeline so that you have enough time prior to the submission date to include any additional information or ask any questions. Next slide, please. Understand the criteria for evaluating proposals. RFAs normally contain the criteria that will be used by evaluators, by reviewers to evaluate your proposal, and these are on page 21 of the RFA. Understand these criteria before you begin preparing your proposal. The RFA criteria provide a better understanding of where to put greatest efforts during proposal preparation. Next slide, please. Keep in mind when you are writing that reviewers may be assigned 10 to 20 proposals. So be sure to follow the specific guidelines and instructions when preparing your proposal so it's easier for the reviewers to go through. Follow directions in the RFA, as I just said, and make sure you're preparing things in a logical order, that it's clear and easy for the reviewers to find the necessary information. Next slide, please. Organize your proposal in a logical order, but also in the order in which is defined in the RFA or evaluation criteria. Again, on page 21 of the RFA. And following this prescribed format will help the reviewers more easily go through your proposal. Next slide, please. Make sure to prepare a strong budget justification and keep budgets within the $2 million RFA guidelines. Please note that just being very under budget does not increase your chances of funding. Next slide, please. Be sure to gain input from others other colleagues who may have been successful in obtaining grants previously, and especially someone who is unfamiliar with what you propose to do, just so they can find any gaps or provide any extra critique and feedback that may be beneficial in your writing. Next slide, please. So the time to submit is 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, January 13th, 2022. Again, all documents must be in PDF form and submitted on time. Late applications will not be accepted. Next slide, please. So now we'll talk a little bit about how proposals are reviewed. Next slide, please. So the evaluation criteria includes, we'll be looking at the project, the reviewers will be looking at the project for potential for building and strengthening capacity and advancing the quality of teaching and education and outreach. An overall approach, cooperative linkages, and quality of the proposal. So we want to make sure you have a clear connection with the institutional goals and plan of operation timetable, as well as the inclusion of metrics to assess specific products, outputs, and outcomes, and of course, an overall quality proposal. We want to make sure that there is enough resources devoted to personnel and that budget and cost effectiveness are reasonable. Next slide, please. So this is just a timeline of the competitive process. First, the RFA is released. Next, you should plan proposal writing and planning. Of course, the RFA was also released, so the sooner the better. The proposal will be due again on January 13th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Within the next 2 to 3 months, the proposal will undergo a peer review, and the proposals will be sent out with a notification of whether or not you were funded. Following this, 1 to 2 months later, awards will be made and finalized. On average, a competitive proposal takes about 6 to 9 months from RFA release to award to be made to the institution. And we'll keep you updated as much as possible. Next slide, please. So successful proposals, of course, we said that each reviewer will be reviewing usually 10 to 20 proposals. Make sure that your ideas are innovative and excite the reviewers. They're easy to read and understand. Again, we talked about making sure that that is in a logical order that follows the RFA. Have a clear rationale and objectives that fit the program priorities and a clear budget and goals. And make sure to address potential pitfalls because reviewers will see those and they'll look for your solution to those, including potential shortcomings and the establishment of alternative plans. You can view a few more resources using the link on the bottom of the screen. Next slide, please. So reasons for lower rating may include little or no relevance to NIFA's mission and or program priorities, a poorly written, unclear objective or hypothesis, any spelling errors or typos, and something that is not innovative, and there would be little new information gained from the execution of the program, and that it's just not as exciting and innovative as other programs. Next slide, please. If you go through this process and you decide that you would like to serve as a panelist in the future on any of our panels, we have included some information here on how to volunteer. The key characteristics of a panel include making sure the panel is diverse. There's a panel orientation and training. You do written reviews and have panel discussion and ranking, and Panelists are really important to NIFA and the NIFA process. Next slide, please. A few more resources are included here, including a calendar of events. You can sign up for the NIFA newsletter, which includes funding opportunity alerts. We have a NIFA blog and any grant resources, information on submitting a grant, and information on awarded grants, as well as a competitive grant flowchart. Next slide, please. Program contacts are Dr. Marie Smith, who is the national program leader of this program, and me, Keisha Corbin, who is the program specialist. Next slide. So now we will be opening the floor to any questions. We do see that we have some in the chat box. First question is, ABIC will be only making one award. Does this mean for each sub-theme? No, we will be making one award total. So one award out of the integrated teaching and outreach proposals. There will be only one award. Does the page limit of 20 pages include the budget justification, or should that be submitted as a separate document? The budget justification is submitted as a separate document. Next question. I know the project types are teaching, education, outreach, or integrated. Can the proposal, though, include a small research component?
I can take that one. The emphasis with the legislation and policy of this particular program, the only project types are teaching, education, outreach, or integrated. So it doesn't have a research. It doesn't have a research focus attached to it. It just deals with teaching, education, outreach, or integrated.
Thank you for that answer. If you need follow-up on that answer, please feel free to type more in the chat, in the Q&A box. The next question is, if a project is funded, can the center call applications and fund specific outreach projects? If so, in the budget, is it possible to allocate some funds for such projects and programs? Maurice, did you want to go ahead and answer that question?
I would have to get back about that particular question. I would want to get back with that particular one.
Okay, we will take your name and make sure to contact you. Next is there assistance for subcontractors looking for an HBCU to support? I'm with the Canon, so this person is looking for an HBCU support.
So I can take that. To answer that question, it would be up to any partnerships or entities to communicate with local historically Black colleges and universities. The program has provided the language on the ABIC page in terms of locating what universities are historically Black colleges and universities, and those to connect with if such interests arise to better answer that question. And we can also provide that via email with those links and information to find out that information.
Okay, there are some questions that were not entered into the chat box, but I will go ahead and answer those. So the first question is, can you make the RFA information available to us via email. The link that was provided in the chat box will take you to the RFA information. Is this the first year for this award, or has an HBCU received it previously? This is the first year for this award. Can we get access to the PowerPoint? Yes, the PowerPoint will be shared, and it will be available as well as this recording on the website that was also pasted into the chat. One question, do the 4 bullet points under evaluation criteria carry equal weight? Yes. What is the start date for the ABIC program? The funds would be released with between, of course, we said up to 9 months for the processing of those awards. So it would be after that. Applications may only be submitted by a lead and or faculty of an HBCU, page 11. So who may be considered a lead? Marisa, do you want to take this one?
Yes, so the lead could be included as a specialist or administrator, the faculty or staff, the lead that is hired and employed at that historically Black college university.
Thank you for that answer. Okay, next question. Is it advantageous for multiple HBCUs combine and submit one application? As we did suggest in the previous presentation, collaboration is a key point that we will be looking at. Marisa, do you have anything to add to that?
No, again, that would be solely up to the applicants to determine. It's just the eligibility that the lead had to be from a historically Black college university.
Another question, is the collaboration or subcontractor limited to HBCU institutions only, or can collaboration be open to other institutions? Collaboration is up to the lead to decide. Another question, what are the scoring points for each of the evaluation criteria? There are not points assigned to the evaluation criteria.
Yeah, and I can follow back up on that. The peer panel process is there to focus on the merit of the proposal submitted. So those peer reviewers are looking at and focusing on the merit and utilizing the evaluation criteria to do that.
One other question, we might need some clarification on this. Can I be part of another institution and submit one from our institution? I'm not 100% sure what you are meaning by that.
Can you repeat that question, Keisha?
The question is, can I be a part of another institution and submit one from our institution? If you could write, Yi-sun, if you could write some more information clarifying that question, we would appreciate it. Another question, can the ABIC proposal be written for 2 years instead of the stipulated 3 years?
So this would be up to the applicant to determine, but the program is up to 3 years.
Okay, another question. Is the expectation for this hub to house all project activities at the hub, or will some or all project activities be expected to occur at other HBCUs? In reading the purpose, it appears that the hub is very centralized and represents all HBCUs as the designer of academic initiatives, which are implemented at brother and sister HBCUs. So Maurice, they're asking if all project activities need to take place at the Center Hub HBCU. Note that you are allowed to subcontract with other HBCUs. So project activities could occur there depending on the lead institution and what they wanted to establish with that agreement. Did you want to?
Correct. Yeah, to just add to that, I think you're correct on that, Keisha. And it would be for the applicant to determine, you know, how do you design your proposal, and if you are including subcontracts with other HBCUs or not.
So there's another question about a research component. What if the small research component is not the focus of the proposal, but will support teaching and outreach activities?
I would want to get back on that to make sure we can give a concrete answer related to that. If you can follow up back with me and Keisha on that so we can get you a concrete answer.
There's a question about a scoring rubric. No, there will not be one provided. The evaluation criteria can be found in the RFA though. How are you measuring the strength of the applicant to receive the grant? And can you provide an example of a good applicant profile?
To answer that question, that's the measuring the strength of an applicant. That's where that peer process comes in, and the reviewers focusing on the merit. So when we note in our presentation and in the RFA of evaluation criteria, that's kind of how, you know, applicants should try to follow in terms of looking at the strengths lowering or based on those slides that Keisha went over closer to the end of successful proposals.
Okay, so the question about being a part of one institution and submitting for another, that was in reference to being a part of two separate applications. So submitting for one application, but being part of another application, would that be allowable? Did you want to answer that, Maurice?
I would need to check on that as well, but I would note that proposals per institution, there's no limit.
Okay, another question. If you are integrating teaching and outreach with student and small farmer, okay, we had research being part of it. We answered that question. Would an HBCU that already has an agriculture program have an advantage? Maurice, did you want to answer this one?
So I'm not sure how that question is framed. I'm not sure how to answer that. I would have to get back to the questioner in terms of answering that.
Okay, another question. Can a business school collaborate with a campus agriculture program for this grant?
To answer that question, that is solely on the applicant, but as long as the applicant that is submitting is a lead from a historically Black college or university.
Another person asked, can you define what innovative is?
So just thinking about innovative, if you kind of think about it and get a chance to read the RFA, you'll see the emphasis in the evaluation criteria. So if you put yourself in the head of a reviewer and you're able to read different ag business programs or technical assistance programs, what is the excite? What is the innovation? What is that light bulb that comes up that could be in terms of capacity? I know Keisha went over the focal point of the project narrative and how that's laid out. You want to read that a little bit more to give a little bit more insight of innovation.
Alrighty, and that seems to be all the questions that I see in. Okay, I see another one that just came in. Will funding be limited to HBC land grant or nonprofit? Funding is not only limited to land grant institutions, it's any HBCU. And that seems to be all the questions now. If anyone else has a question, we'll give you a minute to type that in.
And I want to go back in while we're waiting, if anyone has any other question on that innovation question, because I think it's a really valuable question as we talk about this agriculture business innovation center at an HBCU. And I know I gave the comment of focusing, and this is in the RFA page 15. Innovation, when we talk about innovation, we're talking about describing creative approach, the quality of food and agriculture, and solving a problem or potential results. So looking at that capacity, what can be a great impact in terms of impact from this center on a larger scale.
Great. Okay, so we got 2 more questions that came in. What are the points? We will not have points assigned to the review criteria. These will be evaluated on which is meritorious from the peer review panel. And will the recording of this session be made available? Yes, this will be available on the HBCU Innovation Center website that NIFA has. And we can put that back in the chat box again as well. And that seems to be all of the questions.
Well, we really appreciate the time and the time commitment to join our RFA webinar on the Agriculture Business Innovation Center at a HBCU institution. If you have further comments or questions about the RFA and the program, feel free to email myself or Keisha. Again, we would have the recording on the program page, as well as the slides and resources provided for you after this webinar. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Okay, this,
All
we
right.
have one attendee, but I cannot see
Go ahead
this.
and
Still,
Oh,
go ahead,
okay.
Keisha, and you can stop recording.
Right.